After the age of 50, many people begin exercising with a sense of urgency, believing that more intensity will restore lost youth and protect them from aging. But the human body does not respond to force with renewal. It responds to wisdom. What once built strength can now quietly create strain. And the same workouts that felt empowering at 30 can become biologically stressful at 50. Muscles recover more slowly. Joints carry decades of hidden wear, and the heart adapts differently to prolonged exhaustion. In this stage of life, overexercising is not a sign of discipline. It can be a silent form of self-harm disguised as dedication. Understanding this truth does not weaken our commitment to health. It deepens it, guiding us toward movement that heals rather than harms. Aging does not arrive suddenly at 50. It unfolds quietly through decades, reshaping the body at levels too subtle for the eye to notice. By the time a person crosses the threshold into their 50s, the body they inhabit is not the same biological system that carried them through their 30s or 40s. It still moves, still adapts, still grows stronger when challenged, but it does so according to a new internal rhythm. Understanding this shift is essential, because exercise that once produced strength and resilience can, if applied without awareness, create stress and injury instead. The truth is not that the body becomes weak after 50. The truth is that it becomes more selective about how it responds to physical demand. At the cellular level, muscle tissue changes with age. There is a gradual reduction in fast-twitch muscle fibers, the ones responsible for explosive power and rapid bursts of strength. Slow-twitch fibers, which support endurance and steady movement, remain more stable but require consistent stimulation to maintain function. This shift does not prevent strength development, but it changes how strength must be built. Heavy, high-intensity workouts that rely on quick recovery may no longer produce the same adaptive response. Instead of building muscle efficiently, the body may respond with prolonged soreness, inflammation, or fatigue. These responses are not signs of failure. They are signals of a body recalibrating its priorities toward preservation and repair. Connective tissues also evolve over time. Tendons and ligaments, once flexible and highly elastic, gradually lose some of their hydration and structural resilience. Collagen fibers become stiffer, making joints less tolerant of sudden or repetitive impact. When intense exercise is layered onto these changes without sufficient preparation, the risk of strain increases. A knee that once absorbed the shock of running effortlessly may now require careful strengthening and mobility work to remain stable. Shoulders that once tolerated heavy lifting without consequence may begin to signal discomfort when overloaded. These are not limitations imposed by age alone. They are reminders that biological systems require new forms of support as they mature. The cardiovascular system undergoes its own transformation. The heart remains a remarkably adaptable organ, capable of strengthening through regular activity well into later decades of life. Yet maximal heart rate gradually declines, and blood vessels may lose some elasticity. High-intensity workouts that push the heart to its extremes without gradual progression can create unnecessary strain. Moderate, sustained movement often produces more stable improvements in cardiovascular health for individuals over 50. Walking with intention, cycling at a steady pace, or engaging in controlled strength training allows the heart to adapt without overwhelming it. The goal shifts from peak performance to efficient, sustainable function. Hormonal changes play an equally significant role. After 50, levels of growth hormone, testosterone, and estrogen often decrease. These hormones support muscle repair, bone density, and recovery from physical exertion. With lower hormonal support, the body still repairs itself but requires more time and more supportive conditions to do so effectively. Sleep becomes more critical. Nutrition becomes more influential. Rest days become essential rather than optional. When intense exercise is performed without honoring these needs, the body experiences cumulative stress rather than progressive adaptation. Over time, this stress can manifest as chronic fatigue, joint discomfort, or decreased motivation to move at all. One of the most overlooked aspects of aging physiology is the nervous system. Exercise is not only a muscular activity, it is also a neurological one. Coordination, balance, and reaction time are governed by neural pathways that change subtly with age. High intensity or highly complex movements performed in a fatigued state increase the likelihood of missteps or injury. Slower, more controlled training allows the nervous system to remain engaged and responsive. This does not mean avoiding challenge. It means choosing challenges that enhance stability and awareness rather than overwhelm them. Movement after 50 becomes as much about preserving neural efficiency as it is about building muscular strength. Bone health also influences how exercise should be approached. While weight-bearing activity supports bone density, excessive impact without proper conditioning can create stress on joints and skeletal structures. Strength training with controlled resistance, balance exercises, and moderate impact activities help maintain bone integrity without unnecessary risk. The body thrives on movement that stimulates growth while respecting structural limits. This balance is delicate but achievable when exercise is approached with intention rather than urgency. There is a profound psychological dimension to these physiological changes. Many individuals over 50 approach exercise with a sense of resistance against aging. They remember what their bodies once accomplished and attempt to replicate those achievements through intensity. Yet, the body does not measure worth by the amount of weight lifted or miles run. It responds to consistency, care, and intelligent progression. When exercise becomes an attempt to prove that aging has not occurred, it often leads to overexertion. When exercise becomes a partnership with the body's current capabilities, it fosters resilience and long-term vitality. Adaptation is the central principle of human physiology. The body continuously adjusts to the demands placed upon it. After 50, this adaptability remains but operates within narrower margins of tolerance. Small adjustments in training intensity, frequency, and recovery can produce significant benefits. Gentle mobility work prepares joints for movement. Gradual strength training supports muscle preservation. Adequate rest allows tissues to repair and grow stronger. These practices may appear modest compared to the intense routines often celebrated in youth, yet they align more closely with the biological reality of the aging body. To recognize that exercise must adapt after 50 is not to accept decline. It is to embrace a more sophisticated understanding of health. Strength can still be built, endurance can still be improved, flexibility can still be expanded. But these outcomes arise from cooperation with the body rather than domination over it. Movement becomes less about pushing limits and more about expanding capacity in sustainable ways. The individual who understands this shift does not move less. They move with greater awareness and purpose. Within this awareness lies a new form of empowerment. The body after 50 carries decades of experience, resilience, and adaptation. It has learned how to survive, how to heal, how to continue, despite countless internal and external challenges. When exercise aligns with this accumulated wisdom, it becomes a source of renewal rather than strain. Muscles respond to thoughtful resistance. Joints respond to mindful mobility. The heart responds to steady, rhythmic activity that supports circulation without overwhelming it. Each movement becomes a conversation between intention and physiology, a dialogue that evolves with time and experience. In this stage of life, the question is no longer how much the body can endure, but how intelligently it can be supported. Exercise transforms from a pursuit of intensity into a practice of longevity. The goal shifts from temporary performance to lasting function, from visible effort to invisible adaptation, from proving strength to preserving it for the years still unfolding ahead. There is a subtle line between exercise that strengthens the body and exercise that quietly begins to exhaust it. Many people believe that the only real progress comes from pushing harder, sweating longer, and refusing to slow down. This belief is deeply rooted in a culture that celebrates intensity as discipline. Yet within the human body, especially after the age of 50, intensity is interpreted not only as effort, but also as stress. When physical activity exceeds the body's ability to recover, it shifts from being a tool for growth into a signal of biological alarm. The human body is designed to respond to manageable stress with adaptation. Muscles become stronger after being challenged. The heart becomes more efficient when it works against moderate demand. And bones become denser when they carry controlled loads. However, this adaptive response depends entirely on recovery. When exercise becomes excessive in frequency or intensity, the body no longer perceives the stimulus as constructive. Instead, it interprets it as a threat that must be managed. The nervous system activates protective mechanisms, hormones shift towards stress response, and inflammation begins to accumulate rather than resolve. Cortisol, often called the stress hormone, plays a central role in this process. During moderate exercise, cortisol rises temporarily to mobilize energy and support performance. After the activity ends, levels typically return to baseline, allowing repair and growth to occur. In cases of overexercising, particularly in individuals over 50 whose hormonal regulation has already shifted, cortisol can remain elevated for longer periods. Chronic elevation of this hormone contributes to muscle breakdown, increased abdominal fat storage, and disturbances in sleep patterns. Instead of building strength, the body begins conserving energy and protecting itself from what it perceives as ongoing strain. Inflammation is another quiet consequence of excessive training. Short-term inflammation after exercise is normal and even beneficial, as it signals the body to repair and strengthen tissues. But when exercise is repeated without adequate recovery, inflammation can become chronic. Joints may feel stiff upon waking. Muscles may remain sore for days rather than hours. Energy levels may fluctuate unpredictably. These are not random discomforts. They are biological messages indicating that the balance between stress and repair has been disrupted. In individuals over 50, whose inflammatory responses may already be more sensitive, this imbalance can develop more quickly and linger for longer periods. The immune system also responds to excessive physical stress. Moderate exercise enhances immune function by improving circulation and supporting cellular defense mechanisms. Overexercising, however, can suppress immunity. The body allocates its resources toward managing physical stress and repairing microdamage in muscles and tissues, leaving fewer resources available for immune protection. This can manifest as frequent minor illnesses, prolonged recovery from common infections, or a general sense of physical vulnerability. For many people, these signs are overlooked or attributed to age alone, when in reality, they may be linked to training habits that exceed the body's current capacity. Joint health becomes particularly vulnerable under conditions of excessive exercise. Cartilage, the smooth tissue that cushions joints, does not receive direct blood supply. It relies on gentle, rhythmic movement to absorb nutrients and maintain elasticity. Repetitive high-impact or heavy-load activities performed without sufficient rest can gradually wear down this protective layer. Knees, hips, and shoulders may begin to ache not because movement is harmful, but because the type and volume of movement have surpassed what the joints can sustainably support. Over time, this can lead to chronic discomfort that discourages activity altogether, creating a cycle in which excessive exercise leads to reduced mobility rather than improved fitness. The cardiovascular system, though resilient, is not immune to the effects of overtraining. Prolonged high-intensity workouts without proper recovery can place continuous demand on the heart and blood vessels. In some cases, this may contribute to irregular heart rhythms, elevated resting heart rate, or persistent fatigue after exertion. For individuals over 50, especially those returning to intense exercise after years of relative inactivity, the cardiovascular system requires gradual conditioning. When intensity is increased too quickly or maintained too frequently, the heart may struggle to adapt efficiently. The result is not improved endurance, but increased strain on a system already adjusting to age-related changes. Sleep disruption often accompanies excessive exercise. While moderate activity typically improves sleep quality, overtraining can have the opposite effect. Elevated cortisol and persistent nervous system activation can make it difficult to fall asleep or stay asleep. The body remains in a heightened state of alertness, interpreting the ongoing physical stress as a signal to remain vigilant in. Poor sleep then interferes with recovery, creating a cycle in which fatigue accumulates, but rest remains elusive. For individuals over 50, whose sleep patterns may already be more sensitive to hormonal and neurological changes, this cycle can significantly impact overall well-being. There is also an emotional dimension to the stress of over-exercising. When physical effort no longer produces the expected feelings of vitality and instead leads to exhaustion or discomfort, frustration often follows. Many individuals respond by pushing even harder, believing they simply need more discipline. Yet the body does not respond to pressure with improved performance when it is already overwhelmed. It responds with resistance, fatigue, and sometimes injury. Recognizing these signals requires a shift in perspective, from viewing exercise as a test of endurance to understanding it as a dialogue with the body's current state. Scientific understanding of stress physiology reveals that balance is the foundation of sustainable health. The body thrives when periods of challenge are followed by periods of restoration. Muscles strengthen during rest as much as during exertion. The heart adapts between workouts as it does during them. The immune system recalibrates when given time to recover. Excessive exercise disrupts this natural rhythm, compressing stress without allowing sufficient space for repair. Over time, this can lead to a state of chronic physiological tension that undermines the very health benefits exercise is intended to provide. To move wisely after 50 is to respect the body's feedback rather than override it. Fatigue that persists beyond normal post-exercise tiredness is not a sign of weakness, but a request for recovery. Joint discomfort that increases with continued intensity is not an obstacle to be ignored, but information to be considered. The goal of exercise shifts from maximizing output to optimizing adaptation. Strength is built not by constant exertion, but by strategic effort balanced with intentional rest. When exercise is aligned with the body's capacity to recover, it becomes a powerful ally in maintaining vitality. When it exceeds that capacity, it becomes a form of chronic stress that quietly erodes resilience. The difference between these two outcomes lies not in the activity itself, but in how it is approached, how frequently it is performed, and how carefully the body's signals are honored as it continues its lifelong process of change and adaptation. There is a moment after every movement when the body begins its most important work. It is not during the lift, the walk, or the stretch that true strength is built, but in the hours and days that follow. Recovery is the silent partner of exercise, the unseen process through which muscles repair, tissues regenerate, and energy systems recalibrate. Yet for many individuals over the age of 50, recovery is often misunderstood or underestimated. The belief that progress comes only from constant activity leads to a pattern of exertion without adequate restoration. And over time, this imbalance can transform beneficial exercise into a source of strain. The biology of recovery changes with age in ways that are both subtle and significant. Muscle protein synthesis, the process by which muscle fibers repair and grow stronger after being challenged, occurs more slowly than it did in youth. This does not mean muscles cannot grow or maintain strength after 50. It means they require more time and more supportive conditions to do so. When exercise sessions are stacked too closely together without sufficient rest, the body begins a new cycle of exertion before the previous cycle of repair has been completed. The result is cumulative fatigue rather than progressive strength. Sleep becomes one of the most critical components of recovery in later life. During deep sleep, the body releases growth hormone, repairs microtears in muscle tissue, and consolidates neurological adaptations created during physical activity. However, many individuals over 50 experience changes in sleep patterns, including lighter sleep and more frequent awakenings. When intense exercise is layered onto already fragile sleep cycles, recovery can be compromised. The body may remain in a state of partial repair, never fully restoring the tissues and systems stressed by activity. Over time, this incomplete recovery can manifest as persistent soreness, decreased energy, and reduced motivation to move. Nutrition also plays a central role in the recovery process. Adequate protein intake supports muscle repair, while essential nutrients such as magnesium, vitamin D, and omega fatty acids contribute to inflammation regulation and cellular health. After 50, the body's ability to absorb and utilize nutrients may shift, making balanced nutrition even more important. When intense exercise is performed without sufficient nutritional support, the body lacks the raw materials needed for effective repair. Instead of building stronger tissue, it may begin breaking down existing muscle to meet energy demands. This process can occur quietly, without obvious signs at first, gradually reducing strength and resilience. Hydration influences recovery in ways that are often overlooked. Water supports circulation, nutrient delivery, and waste removal at the cellular level. Dehydration, even in mild forms, can slow these processes and extend recovery time. As people age, the sensation of thirst may become less pronounced, leading to unintentional underhydration. When exercise increases fluid loss through perspiration and respiration, maintaining proper hydration becomes essential for efficient recovery. Without it, muscles may remain tense, joints may feel stiff, and overall energy levels may decline. The connective tissues of the body require particular attention in the context of recovery. Tendons and ligaments adapt more slowly than muscles, especially after 50. While muscles may feel ready for repeated exertion, the connective structures that support them may still be in the process of repair. Insufficient recovery between sessions can lead to microdamage that accumulates over time, eventually presenting as chronic tendon discomfort or joint instability. Gentle mobility work, stretching, and low-impact movement between more intense sessions help maintain circulation to these tissues, supporting their gradual adaptation without overloading them. The nervous system, often invisible in discussions of exercise, plays a decisive role in recovery. Physical activity stimulates not only muscles but also neural pathways that coordinate movement and maintain balance. After intense or prolonged exertion, the nervous system requires time to return to a state of equilibrium. Without adequate rest, it may remain in a heightened state of activation, characterized by restlessness, irritability, or difficulty relaxing. For individuals over 50, whose nervous systems may already be adapting to changes in sensory processing and stress regulation, continuous stimulation without recovery can lead to a sense of persistent tension. Restorative practices such as slow walking, deep breathing, or gentle stretching help shift the nervous system toward a calmer state, allowing full recovery to occur. There is also a psychological aspect to recovery that is often overlooked. Many people equate rest with inactivity or even failure, particularly if they have spent years associating effort with achievement. After 50, this mindset can lead to a reluctance to allow sufficient recovery time between workouts. Yet rest is not the absence of progress. It is the environment in which progress becomes possible. The body uses periods of rest to integrate the benefits of exercise, transforming temporary stress into lasting strength. When rest is denied, the body remains in a state of incomplete adaptation, unable to fully translate effort into resilience. Hormonal balance is deeply connected to recovery capacity. Levels of hormones that support tissue repair and energy regulation shift with age, influencing how quickly the body can restore itself after exertion. Intense exercise performed too frequently can disrupt this delicate balance, leading to prolonged fatigue or fluctuations in energy levels. By spacing workouts appropriately and incorporating lighter movement days, the body's hormonal systems are given the opportunity to stabilize, supporting more effective recovery and sustained vitality. Listening to the body becomes an essential skill in managing recovery after 50. Signals such as lingering fatigue, decreased performance, or reduced enthusiasm for activity often indicate that more recovery time is needed. Rather than interpreting these signals as obstacles, they can be understood as guidance. Adjusting intensity, extending rest periods, or incorporating restorative movement allows the body to return to a state of readiness. This responsiveness creates a sustainable rhythm in which exercise and recovery support one another rather than compete. Consistency in movement remains important, but consistency does not mean constant intensity. A balanced routine might include days of moderate strength training, days of gentle mobility work, and days of complete rest. Each of these elements contributes to overall health. Muscles strengthen during resistance training. Joints maintain flexibility through mobility exercises, and tissues repair during rest. Together, they form a cycle that supports longevity and functional independence. Recovery is not a passive process. It is an active biological state in which the body reorganizes itself in response to physical demand. After 50, this process becomes more deliberate, requiring attention and care. When recovery is honored, exercise enhances vitality rather than depleting it. Energy levels remain stable, joints remain comfortable, and motivation to move persists. When recovery is neglected, even well-intentioned exercise can lead to exhaustion and discomfort. To understand the importance of recovery is to recognize that strength is not built through relentless effort alone. It emerges from the interplay between challenge and restoration, between movement and stillness. The body after 50 continues to adapt and grow, but it does so according to a rhythm that values patience as much as persistence. By aligning exercise habits with this rhythm, individuals create an environment in which the body can repair, rebuild, and sustain its capacity for movement and vitality as the years continue to unfold. There is a quiet emotional force that often drives people to exercise harder after the age of 50, and it is not always rooted in health. It is rooted in memory. Many individuals carry within them a vivid recollection of how their bodies once moved, faster, lighter, more effortlessly. They remember strength that required little maintenance and endurance that seemed almost automatic. As time passes and subtle physical changes appear, a silent determination emerges to preserve that earlier version of themselves. Exercise becomes not only a tool for health, but also a way to resist the visible and invisible signs of aging. This psychological pressure, though deeply human, can lead to patterns of overtraining that place the body under unnecessary strain. The cultural narrative surrounding aging reinforces this internal pressure. Modern society often equates youth with vitality and aging with decline, creating an unspoken expectation that individuals must actively fight against time. Images of intense workouts, extreme fitness transformations, and relentless discipline are frequently presented as the path to maintaining relevance and strength. For someone over 50, these messages can create a sense of urgency. Exercise shifts from being a supportive habit to becoming a personal test of resilience. The goal is no longer simply to feel well or move comfortably, but to prove that the aging process has not diminished capability. In this context, pushing harder feels like empowerment, even when it quietly moves beyond what the body can sustain. The human mind has a remarkable ability to override physical signals when motivated by fear or determination. A person may feel joint stiffness, lingering fatigue, or reduced recovery capacity, but interpret these sensations as challenges to overcome rather than information to consider. The desire to maintain independence and physical confidence can be so strong that it overshadows the body's subtle requests for moderation. Instead of adjusting intensity, individuals often increase it, believing that more effort will restore previous levels of performance. This response is understandable. It arises from a deep wish to remain capable, energetic, and self-reliant. Yet the body does not respond to emotional urgency with accelerated adaptation. It responds to appropriate stress followed by sufficient recovery. There is also a profound identity component linked to physical ability. Many people define themselves by what their bodies can accomplish, the distances they can walk, the weights they can lift, the activities they can perform without assistance. When aging begins to alter these capabilities, even slightly, it can feel like a personal loss. Exercise then becomes a way to reclaim a sense of identity. The gym, the walking path, or the exercise mat transforms into a space where one can reaffirm strength and autonomy. However, when identity becomes tied to maintaining past performance rather than nurturing present well-being, the risk of over-exercising increases. The individual may push beyond safe limits to maintain a familiar sense of self. The comparison with younger bodies, whether those of others or one's own past, can intensify this pressure. Observing younger individuals engaging in high-intensity workouts or recalling personal athletic achievements from earlier decades can create a subtle internal competition. There is a temptation to match previous standards rather than establish new, biologically appropriate ones. This comparison often ignores the natural evolution of the body. It overlooks the fact that strength and vitality after 50 emerge from consistency and care rather than from maximum exertion. When exercise becomes a means of competing with time itself, it loses its grounding in health and shifts toward performance at any cost. Emotional resilience plays a significant role in how individuals approach exercise during this stage of life. Those who accept aging as a natural process tend to adopt more sustainable movement patterns. They focus on maintaining mobility, preserving energy, and supporting long-term health. In contrast, those who perceive aging as an adversary may approach exercise with a sense of resistance or urgency. This mindset often leads to cycles of intense effort followed by exhaustion or injury. The body is pushed to prove its strength rather than supported in maintaining it. Over time, this pattern can erode both physical well-being and emotional satisfaction. Fear is often an underlying motivator. Fear of losing independence, fear of becoming physically limited, fear of being perceived as old or fragile. These fears can drive individuals to adopt rigorous exercise routines in the hope of preserving control over their bodies. While the intention is protective, the outcome can be counterproductive when intensity surpasses recovery capacity. Instead of building confidence, excessive exercise can lead to recurring discomfort or fatigue, reinforcing the very fears that initiated the behavior. Recognizing this emotional cycle is the first step toward breaking it. When exercise is guided by self-respect rather than fear, it becomes more sustainable and supportive. Compassion toward one's own body becomes essential in this context. The body after 50 carries decades of experience, adaptation, and resilience. It has navigated stress, illness, recovery, and countless daily demands. To treat it as an opponent to be conquered through extreme exertion overlooks its enduring loyalty. A more constructive approach involves acknowledging its changing needs and responding with care. This does not mean reducing activity or abandoning goals. It means setting goals that align with current physiology rather than past performance. Strength can still be built, endurance can still be improved, but these outcomes arise from consistency rather than intensity alone. Mindfulness in movement offers a powerful alternative to psychologically driven overexercising. When attention is directed toward how the body feels during and after activity, rather than toward how it appears or performs, exercise becomes a form of communication rather than confrontation. Subtle sensations of fatigue or tension are noticed earlier and addressed before they escalate. Rest days are viewed not as interruptions, but as integral components of progress. Movement is chosen for its ability to nourish rather than challenge beyond reason. This shift in perspective transforms exercise from a test of willpower into a practice of self-awareness. Social influences can either reinforce or ease the psychological pressure to overexercise. Supportive communities that emphasize health, mobility, and well-being encourage balanced routines. Environments that celebrate extreme effort without regard for individual capacity can unintentionally promote overtraining for individuals over 50. Surrounding themselves with messages that value longevity and functional strength rather than purely aesthetic or performance-based outcomes can help reshape their relationship with exercise. Encouragement to listen to the body, adjust intensity, and prioritize recovery fosters a more sustainable approach to physical activity. There is a quiet wisdom that emerges when exercise is no longer used as a tool to fight aging, but as a means of partnering with it. The body does not demand perfection. It responds to consistency and care. Movement performed with awareness strengthens not only muscles and joints, but also confidence and peace of mind. The urgency to prove vitality gradually gives way to the satisfaction of maintaining it. In this state, exercise becomes less about resisting time and more about moving gracefully within it. Guided by an understanding that true strength after 50 is measured not by how hard one can push, but by how well one can sustain health, energy, and balance through the years that continue to unfold. There is a quiet truth that often goes unnoticed in conversations about health and aging. The body does not require extremes to thrive. It requires consistency. In the years after 50, this principle becomes even more important. Yet it is frequently overshadowed by the belief that intense or prolonged exercise is the fastest path to longevity. Scientific understanding of human physiology tells a different story. The most profound benefits for the heart, muscles, brain, and metabolic systems arise not from pushing the body to its limits, but from engaging it regularly in moderate, sustainable movement. The cardiovascular system responds especially well to consistent, moderate activity. When the heart is challenged within a manageable range, it adapts by becoming more efficient at pumping blood and delivering oxygen throughout the body. Blood vessels maintain their elasticity, circulation improves, and the risk of cardiovascular disease decreases. These adaptations do not require extreme exertion. In fact, excessively intense or prolonged workouts can sometimes create unnecessary strain on the heart, particularly in individuals over 50 whose cardiovascular systems are already adapting to natural air-related changes. Steady walking, cycling, swimming, and controlled strength training stimulate the heart in ways that enhance its function without overwhelming it. Mitochondria, the tiny energy-producing structures within cells, also respond positively to moderate and consistent movement. These structures play a central role in how the body generates energy and maintains metabolic health. Regular activity encourages mitochondrial efficiency and supports the body's ability to use oxygen effectively. Over time, this leads to improved endurance, stable energy levels, and better regulation of blood sugar. Excessive training, however, can create oxidative stress that interferes with mitochondrial function. Instead of improving energy production, it may contribute to fatigue and slower recovery. The body thrives when energy systems are stimulated regularly, but allowed sufficient time to restore balance. Muscle health after 50 depends heavily on maintaining consistent stimulation rather than pursuing occasional intense sessions. Muscles require ongoing signals to preserve strength and prevent gradual loss of mass. Moderate resistance training performed regularly sends these signals effectively. It encourages muscle fibers to remain active and responsive without creating excessive microdamage that would require prolonged recovery. Overly intense strength training performed infrequently can produce soreness and fatigue that discourage continued participation. In contrast, manageable routines performed several times a week create a steady pattern of adaptation. The muscles are reminded of their purpose and supported in maintaining it. Joint health is similarly influenced by the rhythm of movement. Joints are nourished by synovial fluid, which circulates more effectively during gentle, repeated motion. Consistent walking, stretching, and low-impact exercises help maintain this circulation, supporting flexibility and comfort. When movement is sporadic or excessively intense, joints may experience stress without the benefit of regular nourishment. Moderate activity provides the balance required to maintain joint integrity over time. It allows cartilage and surrounding tissues to adapt gradually, reducing the likelihood of chronic discomfort. The brain benefits profoundly from regular physical activity. Movement stimulates blood flow to neural tissues, supports the release of growth factors that promote neural health, and enhances mood-regulating neurotransmitters. Consistent exercise has been associated with improved cognitive function, emotional stability, and reduced risk of neurodegenerative conditions. These benefits arise from sustained patterns of activity rather than from occasional extreme effort. Moderate routines integrated into daily life create a stable environment in which the brain can adapt and thrive. Over-exercising, particularly when it leads to fatigue or stress, can have the opposite effect, disrupting sleep and increasing mental strain. Hormonal balance also responds favorably to consistent moderate movement. Physical activity helps regulate insulin sensitivity, supports metabolic function, and influences hormones related to mood and energy. After 50, when hormonal fluctuations become more pronounced, maintaining this balance becomes essential. Excessive exercise can disrupt hormonal stability, leading to prolonged fatigue or changes in appetite and sleep. Moderate activity performed regularly supports equilibrium, allowing the body's regulatory systems to function smoothly. Consistency in movement fosters a sense of rhythm within the body. The nervous system begins to anticipate activity and recovery, creating a stable pattern of adaptation. Energy levels become more predictable, sleep quality improves, and the body develops a reliable capacity for movement. This rhythm reduces the likelihood of injury because tissues are prepared gradually rather than being subjected to sudden, intense demands. Each session of moderate exercise builds upon the previous one, creating a cumulative effect that supports long-term resilience. There is also a psychological benefit to sustainable routines. When exercise is approachable and manageable, it becomes easier to maintain over months and years. Individuals are less likely to experience burnout or discouragement. Movement becomes a familiar and integrated part of daily life, rather than an occasional challenge requiring extraordinary effort. This continuity reinforces motivation and confidence. The body begins to associate movement with vitality rather than exhaustion, making it more likely that the habit will endure. Moderate, consistent movement aligns with the body's natural preference for balance. Human physiology evolved to support regular activity interspersed with periods of rest, not constant extremes. Walking, lifting manageable weights, practicing balance and flexibility, and engaging in activities that elevate the heart rate without overwhelming it reflect this evolutionary design. Such practices stimulate all major systems of the body while preserving the resources needed for recovery and repair. Over time, the cumulative effects of consistent moderate exercise become evident. Muscles remain functional, joints remain mobile, and the cardiovascular system maintains efficiency. Energy levels stabilize, and the risk of chronic disease decreases. These outcomes emerge gradually, often without dramatic transformation, but with steady reinforcement of health. The body responds to what it experiences repeatedly. When it experiences regular, supportive movement, it adapts by sustaining its capacity for strength and vitality. There is a profound shift in perspective that occurs when one embraces consistency over intensity. Exercise is no longer viewed as a task to be completed or a challenge to be conquered. It becomes a daily conversation with the body, a gentle reminder that movement is a form of care. Each walk, each stretch, each controlled lift contributes to a foundation of health that strengthens over time. This approach honors the body's changing physiology and supports its ongoing adaptation. Longevity is rarely the result of extraordinary effort performed sporadically. It is the product of ordinary actions performed consistently. Moderate exercise practiced with awareness and patience allows the body to maintain its functions without being pushed beyond its capacity. In this steady rhythm, strength is preserved, energy is sustained, and the quiet intelligence of the body continues to guide it toward balance and resilience through the years that continue to unfold ahead.